Well, you know, it seems to me with the threat that we're seeing from all across the world, not just America, but all across the world, you get members of Congress that are complaining they don't like what the White House is doing, but yet they're not standing up and speaking out and even having an honest debate on this.
It is no shock because you do not have profiles in courage. And when you also talk about folks who are hypocrites, when all you care about is your re-election and not actually the American people, not actually leading, that's one of the problems. That's one of the problems with this town, in that you have folks, all they care about is coming back in January. The president has stood up and made it perfectly clear when you talk about even boots on the ground. And look, part of the problem is the American people are not with our troops going into another war, another battle. And so he's having to balance the military, balance Republican and Democratic critics, and most importantly, the people who pay his salary and the salary of Congress.
You know, Caddy, what's also fascinating is you have generals. I mean, you got the chairman of the Joint Chiefs who keeps getting out ahead of his commander-in-chief. I find it shocking. 2 times the chairman of the Joint Chiefs has blindsided the White House, blindsided the commander-in-chief. Listen, if you don't like what the commander-in-chief's doing, quit. But if you work for the commander-in-chief, and Caddy K, that's what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs does. He works for the commander-in-chief. Follow orders, or just quit.
But to some extent, he's reflecting the more widespread unease in the Pentagon that there is not a clear end game for this strategy of airstrikes. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to bomb the training camps, degrade the supply lines? Are they trying to roll ISIS back? In which case, how far are they trying to roll them back? And I think that's where a lot of the unease and the dragging. Some Pentagon people have said there's a dragging of feet.
Caddy, the unease, though, is shared in Congress. Congress doesn't know what they're going to do. They have no clear plan. They're just criticizing.
And that's why we need proper
hearings on this. And it's the same thing with the American people.
We need a proper open discussion.
The American people have no idea. They don't want to go back, like Roland said, they don't want to go back to what we've had over the past decade. At the same time, they're scared of ISIS. So what do we do? Shouldn't we have a debate?
Exactly.
Instead of members of Congress running home scared and campaigning? This is pathetic. Sure. We need to have a moment in this country where we see what's happening in Australia, we see what's happening in Britain, we see what's happening all across the Middle East, and we need to have that debate there. Instead, Congress slunk out in the middle of the night in their walk of shame towards the elections.
I want to add to that because we report in the Huffington Post that within the CIA and the intelligence community, there is a widespread skepticism about whether the Syria component of this plan can work, because they have actually been training the rebels through the CIA, and they know that they're affiliated with bad terrorist elements as well. To your point, there's long-term damage to Congress slinking out. It's not just a one-time thing. What you end up doing is you end up empowering the executive branch even further vis-a-vis the legislative branch. The New York Times had a fascinating story today that says because they are not going to vote on this war authorization, they're giving sort of a de facto authorization. Obama declared his intentions to say the 2001 authorization for use of military force applies. If Congress does not vote yes or no on that, they end up authorizing it by a de facto absenteeism.
Well, then that's what they've done.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
I don't want to hear how the commander-in-chief is like shredding the Constitution and why hasn't he come to Congress when this is how Congress acts. If they wanted to have a real debate, Mika, they would have had a real debate.
Roland, real quick.
I do not want to get away from Joe's point. What General Dempsey is doing is dead wrong. The commander-in-chief was elected by the people. He should step in line with the president. He is wrong to counter the president of the United States. We should not look over that. I don't care what the generals have to say. He is the president, not them.
And he's done it twice now in a very public way. I must say, I find it really surprising. Let's look at Iraq for a minute, because we are making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Here in Iraq, we spent a decade. Over 4,000 Americans died. We spent $1 trillion or so to build up an army, which melted in a couple of weeks. They just melted away.
Well, remember, but remember what led up to that. The actions of Paul Bremer also played a role in that. And so he comes in, we pretty much fire everybody, send them away, and then we say, fine, we'll reconstruct it. The other dilemma, and this is where the president is, and I totally understand it because the American people are there. Remember when Russia was fighting Afghanistan, what did we do? We supplied weapons, if you will, to the folks who were fighting the Russians. And all of a sudden, those are the very people people who turned around and were fighting us when it came to the Taliban, when it came to Osama bin Laden. So we're in a conundrum saying, okay, so who do we support? Do we support you today, who is kind of our friend because you're fighting them, but tomorrow you're going to be our enemy? And you have members of Congress, Joe, who are afraid in 5 years they're going to say, you guys arm the very people who are now trying to kill us. That's why we're sort of totally clueless of what's going on.